Hey, good morning, everybody. How's everybody out there? Today, we're going to go and make lasagna. Everybody's favorite, everybody say it around here. So we're going to try and make a nice lasagna today. Okay, so we're going to start out. We basically have three different elements of our lasagna. We have the meat sauce. In the meat sauce, we'll use ground beef. And my favorite Tsp is mild Italian sausage. That's a local product that's made right here in Kansas City. So we have the meat sauce and all of its ingredients, the lasagna, the Hy-Vee oven ready lasagna, great product, Hy-Vee brand. And lastly, we have our cheeses. We have ricotta, and we're also going to use cottage cheese today, as well as some mozzarella and Parmesan cheese. So without further ado, let's get started making some lasagna. First, we're going to start with the meat mixture. We start with the meat by sauteing the garlic and the onions. There we go. So we're going to quickly saute the garlic and the onions until the onions become a bit clear. Then we'll separate them and start the browning of the hamburger and sausage. Okay, our onions and garlic. Our onions are clear. They're ready to be taken off. We're going to take these out of the pan, put them in this bowl, temporary bowl. And we'll hold those off until the meat is all browned. Okay, and then next, we'll add just a little bit of olive oil to keep the meat from sticking to the bottom of the pan. Of course, it's a non-stick pan, but I like my olive oil. What can I say? So we'll add the meat, the ground beef, 80% ground beef, and the Tsp sausage that has the skin taken off of them. So we're going to brown these nice and brown. And when we're finished with that, we'll start putting our tomato sauce and seasonings in. Hey, we're back. We have browned our sausage, our Tsp sausage and ground beef. I used 1 1/4 pounds of ground beef and 3/4 of a pound of the Tsp sausage to make this. So now that's all browned up, drained, ready to go. We're going to add our sauces. First, we have 1 can of tomato sauce, 1 can of Petite diced tomatoes, and finally, 1 can of Hy-Vee diced tomatoes. So that gives us a lot of different textures for our tomato sauce. So we're going to give this a quick stir and incorporate all the tomatoes with the ground beef. Just a real quick stir. And then once that is done, you might notice also that I have my water boiling, and we'll put noodles in the water in just a little bit. Okay, so now it's time to add the spices to the meat mixture. We're going to start with 1 teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of basil, 2 tablespoons of parsley, chopped parsley, and finally 1 tablespoon of sugar. The sugar gives it a nice sweetness as you're chopping down, and it gives it a nice sweetness. We also need 1 teaspoon of salt. Okay, so we're going to let this simmer for 45 minutes to an hour. And when it's finished simmering, we will... Oh, one more thing I forgot to add. We can go ahead and add our onions and garlic at this time. Now, I don't know if you noticed, I like to kind of rough chop my, not too terribly rough, But I don't like to finely chop my onion in this mixture. I like the onion when you bite into it to really recognize that, hey, that's an onion I'm biting into. Not something that just gives it a little bit more texture and flavor. So we'll let that simmer down, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Oh, I didn't see you guys were filming already. Now, you know, in this time of the coronavirus pandemic, you can never wash your hands enough. So I like to wash my hands several times a day. Okay, now we're going to work on our noodles. We've got our water boiling, looking good. One pretty good sized pan of water, because it's going to take up a lot of space. The noodles are. So what I like to do, I like to put about a tablespoon of olive oil in my water before I put the noodles in, and that will help prevent the noodles from sticking together. Now the pan that we're using is a fairly large pan. We're going to have 3 layers of noodles, 5 noodles in each layer. So I'm going to cook 15 noodles. I like to cook my noodles until they're about al dente. You don't want them cooked too much because they're going to soak up a lot of the moisture in the meat sauce. We're going to let those cook. They'll need about 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes to cook al dente, and then we'll take them out. Okay, as our noodles are boiling away here, we're going to make our cheese sauce, cheese mixture that goes into lasagna. We're going to start off with 15 ounces of ricotta cheese from Hy-Vee. Very good stuff. We'll use that. Now, a lot of lasagna recipes call for strictly ricotta. I like to mix it up just a bit. I like to put half ricotta and half cottage cheese. So we're going to pour in about 12 to 15 ounces of cottage cheese that we're going to mix in for a mixture. Now, now you have your cheese. Also, you need 1 tablespoon of parsley flakes, 1 teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. So we'll mix that together real quick. And now when we get ready to start layering our noodles, this will go in the middle of the layers. Okay, our noodles are cooked. They're ready to come off the stove. So I will get my trusty towel to turn these off of the stove. Ooh, it's kind of hot. And then we're going to take it over to the sink and put them in the colander and let them drain. Now, what I like to do, remember they're al dente. So what I like to do, just so they cool down a little bit, we'll run a little bit of cold water in them. So we're going to let them dry before we put them in the pan. So I'm going to take a clean towel, put it right here on the countertop. Take the noodles that just came out of the pan, and we're going to spread them out to allow them to dry just a little bit before we start arranging our lasagna. Okay, our hamburger sausage meat mixture, our meat mixture, has been simmering over here for close to 45 minutes to an hour. We can turn that off. Now is a good time to start our oven. We're going to bake this today at 350 degrees. So we start the oven. Now, we're going to start layering. first thing we're going to do, now these, I think I will put this on it. Okay. We're going to start layering lasagna noodles and the cheeses. Okay. So the first thing we have to do is, since this pan, we're going to put 5 noodles across. And since this pan has very rounded corners, I am going to kind of trim off the edge pieces of lasagna so that they don't stick up and get in the way as we're putting everything together. And then we'll overlap them just a little bit. And the middle piece will go right there in the center, of course. Okay, so we've got the lasagna noodles started. The next thing that we will add is we're going to add the cottage cheese ricotta mixture, kind of a spoonful at a time. Keep in mind, it's going to bake in the oven for 45 minutes. So even though we might not get it evenly spread, whenever it's in the oven, it'll spread itself out. So that's about enough. Now we take some mozzarella cheese. I'm going to use 1.5 to 2 7-ounce mozzarella cheese, part skim milk. We're going to sprinkle that evenly over the top. So we're going to add our meat mixture. So this meat mixture will have 2 layers of ricotta, 3 layers of meat, because of course meat will go on top. Again, I'm cutting the corners off of the lasagna so that it doesn't curl up on the corners. Now we have all these little clippings left over. We're going to throw those in. Cool. I'm just going to kind of throw those in. When you're eating it by lasagna, you'll never know that you're eating a little clipping. Okay. Then we're going to start layering it all over again. Okay, that's our second layer. I've got to reserve quite a bit for the top layer because the top layer really has to cover all the noodles. Okay, that is the last of our ricotta and cottage cheese mixture. Just enough in there for my staff to have a little finger food. Okay, so now we'll take cheese, spread it over. Lucy, is that good? Lucy's kind of grabbing up the little pieces that happen to fall on the floor. She's such a good girl. Okay, and now we have our last layer of noodles that go across the top. Again, clipping the corners. Now, of course, when we clip these corners, you can't put it on top or look bad. It's with your own hand before we put the noodles in. Okay, so we've got all of our noodles in. Kind of squeeze it down and kind of even it out just a little bit. Okay, we got all our mozzarella mixture in, all of our mozzarella, all of our ricotta, cottage cheese. We're going over with the last of the meat sauce. Don't those Hy-Vee noodles look wonderful? How do you like the texture of that meat sauce? I have, like I said before, I had 3 different types of tomatoes. I have the Petite diced tomatoes, tomato sauce, and regular diced tomatoes. I think it gives it a really nice texture. Okay, there we go. Our meat sauce is all done. Now, at the very end, we're going to put some Parmesan cheese. Okay, cover it all up. Parmesan cheese, you know, as it starts to bubble, it'll take 45 minutes to cook. As it starts to bubble, the Parmesan cheese will kind of soak up a lot of that liquid that comes up in the bubbling process. Make a nice crust on top. Okay, so we're ready to go in the oven. We have our oven set at 350. Put it in the oven. Keep an eye on it. Turn the light on. Turn it on for 45 minutes. So we'll pull it out of the oven, see what it looks like, and then we can have some a little bit later on this afternoon. Well, it's about done. We're going to pull it out of the oven in a second now. Okay. Turn that timer off. Wow, Jack. What do you think? Very nice. Okay, we're going to let it pull it right over here. Put it right there on the cooktop. We're going to let it rest for a few hours, and then we're going to have dinner tonight. Franken family dinner will be lasagna. Okay, our lasagna has cooled a bit now, and we're going to serve it. We're about to eat dinner tonight, so we're going to cut it and serve our lasagna. It really looks pretty darn good. So we like big pieces in our family. Here's the first piece. We're going to just take it and scoop it right out. And there it is. Our finished lasagna.
Yum! Yum!